Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News For You? I'm Victoria Cora-Mitchell. In the news this week, in Downing Street, the leader of the government's partner is asked, "Be a poppet, nip out and get me a latte." Leaked footage from Downing Street reveals the real reason behind Lee Kane's resignation. And in Washington, Joe Biden heads to the streets with a clear message for the election protesters, but soon regrets not taking anyone with him. On Ian's team tonight is a comedian who loves going 10-pin bowling and is missing it at the moment. So tonight, for a special treat, he's wearing Ian's shoes. Please welcome Finn Taylor. And with Paul tonight as a TV presenter, Labour peer, and one of those rarest of things, a dame who's working this Christmas. Please welcome Joan Bakewell. We begin with the bigger news stories of the week. Ian and Finn, have a look at this.
This is humble servant of the people just waving away the elite.
He's dressed casually. Usually he's wearing a chicken suit. Catching crabs. It's another poodle. And now they're applauding. And he's looking for divine guidance.
That's the crab in the box being led away.
That's the final exit. Well, one doesn't want to gloat. I don't think that would be appropriate. Dominic Cummings has been sacked and has lost his job.
He's been sacked and he's lost his job.
And he's been sacked.
As well.
I mean, two, can you imagine, both happening at once?
Where did that brown box come from?
You're talking about Dominic Cummings leaving with a cardboard box?
Yes, the cardboard box is always there.
Is it like when you leave prison and you give them the clothes that you first arrived in the box and you take them away again?
Yeah, I was just a vision of Dominic Cummings going to prison there, which he isn't.
Yet.
Apparently, the culture around him had got so toxic, his favourite gesture when he left the room was to pull the plug on an imaginary grenade, throw it behind him. Which is funny because whenever he entered a room, everyone used to go...
You'd think they'd have something better to do in Number 10, but this is an office politics spat, which obviously got out of hand, and it's basically about who should be the Prime Minister's new spokesman. I mean, why does Boris need a spokesman? Why can't the Prime Minister speak for himself? I mean, he's not any good at anything else, is he? Speaking was the thing he was meant to do.
So Boris Johnson gave the job of Press Secretary to Allegra Stratton.
He offered her the job, and then she said, well, I'll only answer to you as Prime Minister, not to this man, Lee Kane, who's sort of the head of communications
That's
again.
Phil Mitchell. What's he doing there?
They call him Kano. Very EastEnders.
Leave it out.
Excellent. You've
Thank
been
you.
working hard on that, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've been talking to taxi drivers in your spare time, haven't
The Prime Minister said, I can't not give the job to her because my girlfriend will be furious. Kane then said, how dare you? And then a briefing war started with a tiny group of people in this office all leaking stuff to journalists about each other, including unpleasant names. So one lot called him and Dominic Cummings the Mad Mullers. And then they were briefing that Carrie Symonds, his girlfriend, was known as Princess Nutnuts.
They're not the wittiest nicknames, are they?
No, but they're still quite funny.
So why do they call Carrie Symonds Princess Nutnut?
Well, I mean, this is the source of much academic debate at the moment. I mean, people will be writing PhDs on this. I think the most credible academic theory is that nut because they think she might be a bit unbalanced, and nuts because she makes a face that looks a bit like a squirrel. I'm just passing this on.
Isn't it because she's vegan, isn't she? So drinks nut milk and things.
Oh, well, this is much better. This is a better counter theory.
There is one good nickname. Here is the ex-Tory MP Simon Burns. What do you think his nickname is?
Simple Simon.
It is to do with him not doing very well at university.
Third-degree burns.
Third-degree burns.
That is good. I've heard that.
So I don't know what you think, Joan. This idea that Boris Johnson is doing what his girlfriend tells him... I mean, this is a man who glided into Downing Street with this much younger woman that he hasn't married, while the woman he was married to, behind whose back he impregnated another woman, was having cancer treatment. This is not a man who's pushed around by women. He's not Andy Capp.
Well, he is to a certain extent, because you obviously only have to put yourself in his way, and he's yours. I mean, obviously, he falls for any passing bit of skirt, as the phrase once was. And one does wonder, just looking at the physique, what is so completely compelling about it? He must have a very good chat-up line, don't you think?
Well, I'm the Prime Minister.
Well,
Have you got a comb?
but it's so clearly misogynistic, isn't it? I mean, it's clearly the blokes in all their blokey ways, and the women standing for something like principle, possibly, or truthfulness, or sense of duty, and all the virtues.
Sense of duty? This is the woman who had an affair with Boris behind his wife's back while she had cancer, Joan.
Of course, we don't know that she knew that.
No, we don't, nor do we know if she asked. It was the whole Brexit plan. We take away power from the unelected bureaucrats and give it to the Prime Minister's girlfriend. It's so pathetic. And then in the end, Cummings and Kane, both of them, had to leave.
That's the thing that's worrying, is that these two people, no matter how unpleasant they were, my understanding is they were the ones that were actually running the shop, and that Boris is just a kind of vessel. So we seem to have ended up with this situation where our government is just like a steamed ham that's been hollowed out, and we just stuffed it full of narcissistic twats. That seems to be what we voted for.
But it was like that when he was mayor. He likes winning competitions.
He's not the only major politician in recent times to have campaigned for the job that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump at the moment in America is desperately trying to cling on to the job that he's not doing.
But why? Why do they do that?
Well,
they
in
get
Trump's
the-
case, he doesn't want to go to prison.
And in Boris's case, he doesn't want to go home.
Yes, exactly.
No, that's exactly right. And I think Biden winning was just a sudden realisation that...
Well, it's a bit early to say Biden won, Ian. I mean, there's still a lot of counting to do.
Well, we will be talking about Trump later. So what is the highlight on Lee Kane's CV?
Oh, he's chicken. He was a big chicken for the... Was it the Mirror? Or it was a paper, and he had to stand outside Cameron's when Cameron was in office. Is this right?
Well, there's been various chickens. The Mirror chicken, I think, was somebody else. He followed the Tories around.
Dressed as a chicken.
What particular popular MP has talked about being followed around by this chicken?
John Prescott?
Close.
That was the egg.
Yeah.
What does a chicken signify?
Well, I think it signifies... I mean, you tell me. They're always getting chickens to follow MPs around.
I think it's a fairly literal joke. So it's if someone's refused to, say, be interviewed by anyone, except Good Morning TV or whatever the case may be.
Oh, right.
Well, let's see somebody that he followed around.
Well, Dominic Cummings I have never met. The man who's resigned, I only met when he chased me dressed as a chicken when he was campaigning for the Labour Party a few years ago, and I have not, I'm afraid, met him since. I seemed a decent enough chicken at the time.
Old-fashioned Tory. Perfectly agreeable chicken.
Who is likely to profit from the chaos in Downing Street?
Princess Nut Nut.
It's thought that Michael Gove might use the opportunity to topple the PM. Apparently, he still thinks he can have a go at getting the top job.
Really? Well, he's seen one unpopular Prime Minister. He thinks he can do better.
Well, Cummings has already started briefing against Boris Johnson. He says Johnson is indecisive and it was often up to Michael Gove to fill the leadership vacuum.
Is that the one in the cupboard?
And a source told The Times that, left to his own devices, Boris will wander off from decisions and read Pliny or Pericles or eat or shag.
When was the last time Boris read Pliny or Pericles? 40 years ago, I think.
But you're not questioning the eating or the shagging.
No, well, there's visual evidence of both.
Yes.
Cummings has been inundated with job offers. What's he been asked to do?
Specsavers advert?
You're quite close.
Turn on some Christmas lights somewhere.
Where?
Barnard Castle.
Yes. He's been invited to switch on the Barnard Castle Christmas lights. So Cummings is gone, but who has been let back into the bosom of the Labour Party?
Jeremy Corbyn, of course.
Jeremy Corbyn was let back in by a disciplinary panel after 19 days in exile, although he's been refused the whip. What do we think of that?
he's been denied the whip. That's the punishment that he has to undergo. And yet, when he was a Labour MP under Tony Blair, he actually voted consistently against Labour amendments and Labour policy. He liked it because then he could defy the whips. Right. It's quite appropriate that he's not given the whip now because of the report, which found they behaved against the law. He broke the law.
I feel like we had an opposition for 19 days and now it's over again because he just won't stay in his box. It's like my relationship with Corbyn is like Bob Dylan in that I only hate him so much because of his fans. In that people think Bob Dylan is the greatest musician that ever lived, and you go, OK, you listen to
That's
something.
me. About me.
Yeah, well, you listen to something, it's awful. You know, poet or whatever, but he's got a sinus infection, clearly. I mean, it's not nice to listen to. But then people are so dogmatic and say he's the greatest musician.
He won the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Yeah, literature, not singing, right? Well, and so he's terrible. But people who like Corbyn, it's like, what? It's 200,000 people in the Labour Party that are fanatics. So all you've got to do next year, bomb Glastonbury, hopefully Dylan's headlining, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Well, that's the end of your career.
Yeah. Oh, my week on Twitter next week's going to be lovely.
All I was going to say is I just think you have to say hats off to the Labour Party. The week that the Tory party is in full civil war mode, pulling itself apart, you let Corbyn back into the Labour Party. Brilliant. Focus off. Tories let off hook again.
Well, you say Tories let off, but who else has been accused of spreading fear in the government?
Oh, Priti Patel. She was being investigated for bullying in her department and being unpleasant to civil servants. And they've come up with a report that says, I don't know, something like inappropriate behaviours,
But some of it's
plural.
Bullying, whether intentional or not.
Or not.
Yes, and a source told the BBC that Patel failed to treat civil servants with consideration and respect. Mark Sedwill said there could be a wide range of sanctions. Surprising, isn't it? Because she seems so nice. This is the departure of Dominic Cummings from Number 10, probably the most hated man in the news last week. And let's not forget this was week when Peter Sutcliffe died. According to the Daily Telegraph, as Lee Kane left Number 10 for the last time, colleagues followed the old Downing Street tradition of banging on the desk. Coincidentally, that's also how Boris and Carrie celebrated. Amid claims of a macho culture at Number 10, The Sun reported female advisors are accused of leaking more than men. Well, that can happen once you've had kids. Paul and Joan,
Yes.
look at this.
Oh, hooray, hooray. We've won the vaccine race.
Well, if anybody can fuck it up, it's him. Yes, it's good news. By the summer of next year, maybe this will all be a distant memory for us.
I've never been so glad to be old. It puts me towards the front of the queue. I'll take anything they give me, I tell you. I'll offer to be a guinea pig. I'll try it, as long as they just don't give me the placebo.
No, that's no good.
I wouldn't like that.
No, that's been around for a long time, that one.
I shall be elbowing my way to the front, certainly.
I'd be prepared to push Prince Philip out of the way to get to the front. He can't have much muscle tone left, surely.
There are several vaccines. There's the Pfizer and BioNTech, which claims 90% effectiveness.
Yes.
Moderna claims 95%.
Yes.
And the Russians are claiming 92% for honest Vlad's very good Jabsky.
Yes.
In
I'm not
Rolldown,
going to Russia.
what was fishy about the announcement from Pfizer?
Well, it wasn't fishy. It was just it came after the American election had been decided.
What did Donald Trump say about that?
Well, he said it was fishy because it was after the American election hadn't been decided.
That's his logic, isn't it?
Yes.
He said, if this vaccine had been developed a few weeks earlier, I would have won the election, which I did.
Yes.
What's the problem with the Pfizer vaccine?
It's the thing about it being refrigerated to a very cold temperature.
It's got to be colder than it is at the Arctic, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it's just so cold. I don't know how you
And
get
how
something
people are going to
like
get to the Arctic on their own back.
I think people were quite confused as to why there were so many, but according to my aunt on Facebook, the Pfizer one gives you autism, the Moderna one makes you infertile, and the Oxford one is the microchips to track us all. So, I hope that clears it up.
But we haven't got enough of the other ones anyway. I think the Pfizer and the Moderna, we didn't order enough, whereas Donald Trump did.
Yes.
He was quite good, really, wasn't he?
The problem with this story is it's just such fantastic news. No one really knows how to react. So you watch the papers and broadcasters, and they're going, well, the world's been saved. After all, we thought we'd be with this virus forever and life would be thoroughly miserable. But it's quite a low temperature in the fridge, though, really.
Who did a lot to help develop the Moderna vaccine?
Dolly Parton.
It was Dolly Parton.
I told you, it's all good news.
Yeah.
She gave $1 million to the Moderna vaccine project. And what else impressed Dolly Parton in the last few days? Something to do with Chris Packham.
Is she a fan of Autumn Watch?
Well, here she is on the One Show.
Hi, I'm impressed with your Hedgehog Highway. I tell you, that subdivision is more important than any we got here in Nashville. That's impressive.
I must say, what magnificent baubles. She is impressed with the Hedgehog Highway. And what has a National Audit Office report revealed about the government's early attempts to combat the virus?
Well, this is the coronavirus scandal. This is the contracts amounting to billions of pounds. And it went to a lot of people who didn't have any qualifications. And apparently, I didn't know this, but you could, if you were an MP or a peer, fast track a friend of yours who thought they could manage such a company, and they would profit by many millions of pounds without any competitive tendering.
Nyanda Capital, that's an investment firm, they got a £250 million contract to supply face masks with loops, which the NHS said weren't good enough. And their advisor, Andrew Mills, used to work at the Department of International Trade, run by Liz Truss, so that was fast-tracked.
There was a jewellery designer in Florida who got something like £200 million because he said he could supply the goods. All he had was a lot of trading contacts in China, which is apparently where a lot of this equipment comes from. Do you design jewellery, Paul?
No, but I'm quite willing to take it up if that sort of money.
Why is Boris Johnson in isolation?
He's got an app that tells him whenever he's been near one of his children.
Who has he been near?
He had a meeting with, I think it was 6 or 7 MPs. None of them wore masks. They were in Downing Street. One of them went down with the virus and he now has to isolate.
Here he is standing next to Lee Anderson. But you just go, come on, you're the Prime Minister, people are taking pictures. Why don't you just stand 2 metres apart? How difficult is it? Boris Johnson says that he's bursting with antibodies and he has had a negative test.
That was an IQ test, wasn't it?
Moving away from Westminster, even without isolation, lockdown 2 is starting to affect people. Let's see this chap in Burnley.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to bother you. Can we just ask you how happy you're feeling right now?
I'm bloody miserable, actually. What do you expect?
This is the news that a number of effective COVID vaccines are on the horizon. The World Health Organization's regional director for Europe said that this year's festive season will be a different Christmas, but that does not mean it cannot be a merry one. Well, that's all very well coming from someone with a key to the morphine cupboard. One of the vaccines is made by Pfizer, and it's very much in their interest to keep men over 70 alive, as they also make Viagra. The Tories have been accused of giving billions of pounds worth of PPE contracts to their friends in what's been called a chumocracy. Perhaps a good topic for the Prime Minister's new spokeswoman, Allegra Stratton, who's godmother to the daughter of Rishi Sunak, who was best man at Allegra's wedding to the political editor of The Spectator, where Boris used to be editor. And so to round 2, the picture spin quiz. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
Yes, this is Joe Biden, who is waiting to become the president in January. And Trump is in a position where he can't lie, cheat, steal, bribe or bully his way out of a losing situation. And apparently this is driving him mad. And he's locked himself away. He's not come out of the White House. He sits there every day just watching television, fuming, sacking people. He doesn't care about other people, and he doesn't care about, as I was saying earlier in the bit that was edited out, he's desperately fighting to keep the job that he doesn't want to do.
And who has he fired this week?
He's fired this man, Krebs, who's in charge of counting the votes.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? He's head of cyber security. He sends him out with the authority to check on all these claims, these legal situations, and come back with the answer. And Krebs comes back and says, no, there was no fault, there was no corruption. So he sacks him.
Yeah. This would embarrass the average banana republic.
But it would embarrass the average banana. Didn't need the word republic on the end of that sentence.
How did the British government welcome the incoming Biden administration?
Oh, they put out a tweet and it still had some...
Donald Trump.
Clearly, it was a message for whoever had won, and they hadn't taken the Trump bit
It
out.
posted a congratulatory tweet, but people noticed that if you changed the contrast on the tweet, you could see this. An alternative one congratulating Donald Trump.
Well, on that screen there, I mean, I can't see the word Trump, but I can see the word rumpo.
I think that's written on most of Boris Johnson's communications.
Yes, it's called headed notepaper.
According to the BBC, the agency's security chief only learned he was out of a job when he saw the president's tweet. Wow, how shit a spy is he?
Also, I don't think he cares if he pushes the country towards a sort of civil war. The crazy boys, or whatever they were called, were told to stand by.
The crazy boys.
What were they called?
The Osmonds. Proud Boys.
What did the televangelist Kenneth Copeland do to show his support for Trump?
He laughed.
He laughed.
Yeah.
Here it is.
The media said Joe Biden's president. Ha 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 ha.
No joke is that funny.
To be fair, though, it'd be quite good in our Zoom audience.
Yes.
This is the sacking of Donald Trump's head of cybersecurity, Chris Krebs, which surprised a lot of people who thought it was Vladimir Putin. Since Trump lost the election, it's been a busy time for lawyers in the White House, most of them Melania's. Fingers on buzzers, teams.
The Crown, obviously, is back, and there's uproar because it is not accurate. Well, any historian will tell you there's no such thing as an accurate version of history, but you can get certain facts right, and there's an outcry.
It's more the dates and the shifting around of events and the suggestion that Mrs Thatcher and the Queen wept together over the danger of their boys when these events were hugely separated in time and extremely unlikely.
Spoiler alert, I've only just started season 4.
No, spoiler alert, it happened in the 1980s.
Yeah, I was born in 1990. Next thing you're going to tell me that Charles and Diana didn't even work out.
No, I'll give you a sneak preview. She goes in to see the Queen, Mrs Thatcher, and the Queen goes, hello, would you like to sit there? And she goes, yes, I would,
What? This is
That's it for hours.
How many years have you been able to do that?
Do you know what Prince Charles said?
Yeah, that was it.
Prince Charles thought it was trolling the family on a Hollywood budget.
Hey, I tell you who's had a good year. Prince Andrew. I reckon he's the only person for whom 2020 has gone to plan.
Yeah.
Because we've all forgotten that he said he wasn't a pedo because he's been to Pizza Express.
When they get to the Prince Andrew story, the Crown's rather dubious grasp of historical facts will probably claim that he's a pizza who was at Pedo Express.
What very important inaccuracy was spotted by a Daily Telegraph reader?
Handbag mistake?
Let's have a look. The show's portrayal of Prince Charles' fishing technique was utterly unjustifiable. What did Prince William announce this week?
He's happy about the investigation into how Bashir got the interview.
The BBC, having had an inquiry earlier on looking into itself and to see whether Martin Bashir or anyone on Panorama had behaved badly at the time, decided that no one had. But now it's all come out again. You'd think this time they could interview Martin Bashir, but he's very ill. He's got a form of COVID that requires you to eat curry and go to the off licence, which is quite a serious one. So I'm afraid he can't answer any questions.
So he's not as ill as we've been told?
Judging by the pictures of him out and about, no.
Right.
And I think it's very convenient for everybody that he can't answer these questions.
Ironically, those pictures are forged.
And what was Tony Hall's role in it?
He was head of news at the time.
And do
You were probably there, Joan. Was it your fault?
No, it wasn't. It does interest me that Martin Bashir is now head of religious broadcasting and ethics. Rob.
This is the Netflix series that's been accused of showing the royal family in a bad light. Let's be honest, it's just a glossy soap opera full of cartoonish characters that we shouldn't take seriously. But it is good source material for The Crown. Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, defended the series on Good Morning Britain, saying, you can't just take one thing from The Crown. Well, you didn't, did you, Paul? You loaded up half of Anne's worth. Fingers on Buzzer's team.
Well, of course, this is a statue by Maggie Hamling, put up to remember Mary Wollstonecraft. Formidable women, both of them, I must say. It would have been wonderful to see an encounter between them. But this has come in from a lot of disapproval because Maggie Hamling rather likes that. She creates statues that always cause a bit of a stir. This presumably, I think, because it shows pubic hair in a statue, which is not often done.
Can we just take a slightly closer look at the old Hedgehog's Highway? I mean, it is a bit curious looking.
That's how women look.
Was it?
I don't think I've ever been close enough, to be honest.
What do you think of that statue?
I've only seen it in articles saying how terrible it is, so my impulse is to defend it. I like Maggie Hamling's work as a watercolourist. She's a brilliant painter.
Didn't she do that statue of Cristiano Ronaldo with the ice cross?
One critic said that it looks like someone stuck a Barbie doll on top of a kebab.
I like the comment from someone saying, well, you can judge a statue by thinking what they would have done with a male, and it's very rare that you see Thomas Paine, for example, totally naked.
To quote the writer Tracy King, you don't get to see an artist's impression of Nelson Mandela's cock and balls in a play. So, you know, that would give meaning to the slogan, Free Nelson Mandela. Who else was in the running to do the statue of Mary Wollstonecraft?
Tommy Steele.
Actually, you know, it might have been Tommy Steele. All I know is that there were two people in the running and the other one was a man.
Oh.
But that would have been wrong too, wouldn't it? I think it would have been a bit strange to get a man to make the statue in tribute to Mary Wollstonecraft.
No, I think you just get a good sculptor, myself. But then I'm not very woke about that. I'm sure there are people who feel only women should make statues of women, only men should make statues of men, and...
Only horses should make statues of horses.
Why has a statue in the Spanish town of Palencia caused upset this week?
Is it one of those statues that gets renovated badly?
Well, you can be the judge of that. It's supposed to be a smiling woman. It's on a sort of ornate 20th century building. Here it is before the restoration.
Yes.
And here it is now.
Oh.
What? They're calling it the potato face of Palencia. What has the statue been likened to?
E.T.?
Close.
A potato?
Yes.
Mr. Potato Head?
Isn't Palencia a sort of potato?
I don't think so. Let's see the particular Mr. Potato Head they think it looks like.
Yes, it is. It is Trump.
Spaniards say that is a disaster that should be removed immediately, but they'll have to wait for Inauguration Day like the rest of us. What has Turkmenistan unveiled a giant statue of this week?
It's a giant statue of a dog.
Yes.
And it was made by a dog.
I don't think it was, but let's have a look at it.
It was.
And why have they done that?
He was a good boy.
It's the favourite breed of Turkmenistan's president. In other news, what does the Japanese town of Takekawa put in the woods to scare off bears?
A toilet that doesn't flush properly.
No, it's a robot wolf. Let's see it.
Any self-respecting... Oh, no, that's two different bits of footage altogether. Taken at different times of the day, I can tell you that for a start.
What is this, The Crown?
Yeah, any bear looking at that wolf will say, why has he had a Zimmer frame shoved up its arse? Not going to scare anybody.
This is the new statue of feminist icon Mary Wollstonecraft. For anyone watching under the age of 25, that's what pubic hair used to look like. Time now for the odd one out round. Just one between you this week. Your four are General Mark Carlton Smith, Buzz Lightyear, Rudy Giuliani and Henry I.
I think it's to do with being lost. in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because that general got lost on some exercises about 2 weeks ago, and there was a huge thing in the papers about it's an army exercise and we've lost the commander-in-chief.
Well, the army source actually denied that he was lost. They said he was just not where they were expecting him. What about the others?
And Rudy Giuliani thought he was going to be at the Four Seasons Hotel, but he ended up at the Total Landscaping.
That's right.
Is it Henry I? Because he never got lost.
Even as my partner, that's a terrible argument. Henry I.
They don't know where his body is. They don't know where his remains are.
They do know where his remains are.
But they're in the wrong place.
Yes, they're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
This is actually Charles Spencer again. Earl Spencer, a distant relative of Henry I, has started a campaign to move his remains. They are currently buried under an old prison, and Charles told the Times it's a travesty that he's been reduced to being in a place he clearly didn't want to be. Not our only royal, keen to avoid prison. According to the Telegraph, Henry I was said to have died after gorging on a surfeit of eels. His addiction started out with just a few eels a day, but it's a slippery slope. Thank you very much. Good night.
Now we know why Henry I was in.
Not really. No. I think that's meant to be a send-up of my excellent closing jokes on Only Connect, but let me say, if there was ever a joke that good, I'd be delighted. A slippery slope. So who's the odd one out? They've all been the right person in the wrong place, but Buzz Lightyear was the wrong person in the right place. According to my cards, and let me tell you, if this was an Only Connect question, it would not get through the verifiers. But Buzz Lightyear's name appeared in a list of defendants at Stoke-on-Trent Crown Court.
You're kidding.
No, it was to do with an IT error. As well as Buzz Lightyear, other defendants listed included Tinkerbell, Snow White and Roadrunner. I'm guessing his was a traffic offence. It was a sort of IT thing. Who do you think was listed as defendants at Bradford Crown Court?
Are you asking us to pick a name from all the names of people and fictional characters that have ever existed?
They're not even real names. Cherry Bobbles, Maximus Tremendous and Armady Tartar.
They're all candidates to the new Chief of Staff.
Tell me about the Rudy Giuliani business. What was that?
He meant to be at the Four Seasons Hotel, and he said he was at the Four Seasons Garden Centre, which was next to an adult bookshop. And he claimed that this was where he was meant to be all the time. But yes, he was in the wrong place at the right time.
That they booked this Four Seasons landscaping centre that was apparently between a sex shop and a crematorium.
Yes, well, exactly. Yeah, that's the life cycle there, isn't it?
Have you ever watched his YouTube channel?
Do you know what? I haven't.
It's amazing. He does the programmes, but then he also does the adverts.
Oh, yeah, really?
Shall we have a look?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
An impact on the psychology of this, which push all the networks then to kind of leave out the calling the Trump states. Let's call Biden. Let's get him to 270. Let's get him to 270. This is a good time to take a break. If you want a good cigar, go to a good cigar shop. You want the best, go to Famous Smoke Shop. Let Famous Smoke deliver your favorite cigars right to your doorstep at America's lowest prices.
Yes, it's a great advert, isn't it?
He just moved to a different bit of his house to do the advert.
Yes, I think so, yes.
You wouldn't get Churchill doing something like that.
They've all been the right person in the wrong place, except for Buzz Lightyear, who was the wrong person in the right place, apparently. Not all the animated names on the list were computer errors. As a mother in lockdown with a 5-year-old, I firmly believe that Elsa from Frozen should be on trial at The Hague.
Oh, let it go.
Also this week, General Carlton Smith went missing in action for 20 minutes after his helicopter dropped him off in the wrong field. It was a relatively minor incident, but that still hasn't stopped production starting on a Ross Kemp special. Last week, Rudy Giuliani found himself in the wrong place after confusing a garden centre with the Four Seasons Hotel in Philadelphia. The Guardian described Four Seasons Total Landscaping as being situated between a sex shop and a crematorium, which is eerily symbolic of the choice of candidate the American people had. Time now for the Missing Words Round, which this week features as its guest publication Historical Diving Times, the magazine of the British Historical Diving Society. The readership is going down slowly. And we start with Keir Starmer reveals on Desert Island Discs that he used to what?
Enjoy life. Be against euthanasia?
Be a rabbi.
I know this. He used to live above a massage parlour.
Correct. He used to live above a massage parlour.
I had the flat next door.
Now, let me get this right. You were working in the flat below.
Keir Starmer revealed that he used to live above a massage parlour. My family were really embarrassed, said a masseuse. Next. People often ask me what the difference is between the Swedish Historical Diving Society and the Historical Diving Society of Sweden. I simply tell them, what?
I simply tell them, stop talking to me or I'll call the police. There isn't any difference. At all, they're both the same thing.
I'm going to give you the point.
Yes.
I would have preferred the wording...
I simply tell them that the SDHF was filmed in 1979.
And when the HDS came into being, what was HDS Sweden simply adopted the original name.
Yeah.
The HDS was, of course, founded in 1990, so if you've done your sums properly, that makes the SDHF some 11 years older. Although none of this matters, as they are now both incorporated into the same society, and so the answer is there is no difference between the Swedish Historical Diving Society and the Historical Diving Society.
In terms of missing words questions that we've had, that one is certainly the best.
You're right, it's from the Historical Diving Times. That magazine will win an award one day, but don't hold your breath. Next, testing new diving equipment at sea in the 18th century was difficult because inventors often had to stop to what?
Self-isolate.
Is it drown?
Come up for air. Apply resin to their stovepipe hats.
Fight off pirates.
Yes, Joan is correct. Inventors often had to stop to fend off pirates.
Blimey.
This is a gushingly positive article headlined The Pioneering Braithwaites. Refreshing to see some unbiased journalism by William Braithwaite. Next, firework business gets round lockdown rules by what?
Firing them off underwater.
Yes.
Firework business gets round lockdown rules by selling fireworks and bags of potatoes as bangers and mash.
Huh?
This week, the shop at Bamber
That's a
Bridge...
treat for the kids when you put them in the fryer, aren't they?
There's a shop in Bamber Bridge in Lancashire which was criticised for the stunt of this sign. The shop jokingly described firework bangers as if they were sausages. One customer spent ages trying to light a Catherine wheel before realising it was a Cumberland ring. What say their job is being affected by performance anxiety?
Vote counters.
Psychiatrists.
Tory front bench.
Tory front bench.
Irish Catholic priests say their job is being affected by performance anxiety. This is priests saying the pressure to perform Mass online is leading to widespread performance anxiety as parishioners in lockdown are comparing viewing figures as if it were a competition. Father Brendan Hoban told The Guardian that worshippers were hopping from Mass to Mass, just sampling them. Father Tim Hazelwood added, "A lot of the lads are self-conscious. We are bald, old-looking, don't speak very well. Some of the Mass hoppers delivered harsh verdicts." I know, it's sad, isn't it?
It is.
The Catholic services are being treated as online entertainment. Just the thing for settling back and watching with a glass of wine and a wafer. Before we move on, who else got a bad review in Ireland this week?
Is it a trailer for a film with some dodgy accents?
Oh, yes, yes.
I saw this.
Not just accents. This is actors in a new Hollywood film about Ireland who've been criticised for stereotyping and dodgy accents. Should we have a look at the cringe-worthy clip?
There's these green fields, and there's us. Whatever that is, it holds me here.
When he says those things.
It's not normal.
I don't care.
You take after John Kelly, and that man was mad as the full moon. Drowned himself. He fell in. He had a rock tied to his neck.
Christopher Walken, I believe, was in it.
It's good.
It led to this tweet from the Irish Leprechaun Museum. Even we think this is a bit much. Next, John Lewis Christmas advert causes outrage by falsely claiming what?
Christmas.
To have won the American election.
John Lewis Christmas advert causes outrage by falsely claiming the 222 bus goes to Tooting.
Oh, what nonsense.
Here is the shocking footage. This year's John Lewis Christmas advert has been widely criticised for its inaccuracies, the biggest of which was when it showed someone in London smiling. And finally, dog regrets attacking office stationery after what?
It got a bit too big-headed after a statue of itself was unveiled.
After he's sick into a bucket.
After he swallows a stapler and finds all his internal organs linked.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
No, sorry.
I mean, it is quite ridiculous. Dog regrets attacking office stationery after biting into ink cartridge and turning itself blue. Here's what Rosie ended up looking like.
It's Mel Gibson.
Mel, it's Mel. He's doing an impression of Mel Gibson. He's being Scottish.
Freedom.
So the final scores are Ian and Finn have 6 points, Paul and Joan have 7.
Well done, Joan.
Before we go, there's just time for the caption competition.
Office workers question new government PPE contracts.
Is she saying how much longer you're going to keep that invisible budgie on your finger?
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists, Ian Hislop and Finn Taylor, Paul Merton and Joan Bakewell. And I leave you with news that at number 10, as Boris Johnson celebrates getting rid of Dominic Cummings and his bully boy culture, there's an ominous knock at the door. Reports are coming in that after stealing the show on last weekend's Strictly, Prince Harry's internet's gone down and won't be fixed for weeks. And as the waiting drags on to the point of awkwardness, it looks like Emmanuel Macron's pet Kestrel is not coming back.
Just done my budgie joke.
Just done the budgie joke.
The writers have seen, oh, that's a good joke. Right, quick, find somebody with his hand sticking out. Macron, budgie, can't do Kestrel, yeah, begins with a K. Funny K, put it in. Give it to you, then you cut out my joke.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah, oh, good night.